The knock on my door came at exactly 7:30 on a Tuesday morning in mid-December, and when I opened it to find Patricia Henderson standing there with a clipboard and a scowl that could freeze Lake Michigan, I knew my day was about to go sideways. "Mr. Kowalski," she said, not bothering with pleasantries, "I'm here regarding multiple violations of our community decoration standards." I blinked, still holding my coffee mug. "I'm sorry, what?" Patricia was the kind of woman who wore pearl earrings to a grocery store and treated every conversation like a formal tribunal. She was in her early 50s, with blonde hair cut in that particular style that screamed, "Let me speak to your manager," from 3 blocks away. As president of the Riverside Meadows Homeowners Association in suburban Chicago, she took her position with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. "Your winter decorations," she said, gesturing dramatically at my front yard. "They're in clear violation of Section 7, subsection C of our community guidelines." I stepped outside, following her pointed finger. My yard looked pretty standard to me. I had put up some white icicle lights along the gutters, a modest inflatable snowman near the mailbox, and a wreath on my door. Nothing crazy. Nothing that would make Clark Griswold jealous. "What's wrong with them?" I asked. She consulted her clipboard like it contained the secrets of the universe. "The inflatable decoration exceeds the permitted height by 14 inches. Your light display extends beyond the approved roofline parameters. And that wreath," she said the word like it personally offended her, "contains prohibited reflective elements." "It has a red bow," I said flatly. "A shiny red bow. Reflective materials create visual pollution and disturb the aesthetic harmony of our community." I had moved to Riverside Meadows 8 months ago after my divorce from Rachel became final. The neighborhood was in Naperville, Illinois, a nice suburb west of Chicago with good schools and tree-lined streets. The house was a 3-bedroom colonial with a decent yard, and it had seemed perfect for starting over. The HOA fees were a bit steep at $200 a month, but the neighborhood was well maintained, and I figured it was worth it. Now I was starting to question that assumption. "Listen, Patricia," I said, trying to keep my tone reasonable. "I looked through the paperwork when I bought the house. I don't remember seeing anything about specific decoration restrictions." "Then you clearly didn't read thoroughly enough," she snapped. "I'll need these violations corrected within 48 hours, or you'll face fines of $100 per day per violation." $300 a day. My voice went up an octave. "Rules exist for a reason, Mr. Kowalski. This community maintains certain standards. If you wanted to live somewhere with tacky, oversized decorations, perhaps you should have chosen a different neighborhood." She turned on her heel and marched back to her white Lexus SUV parked in my driveway. I stood there in the cold December air, watching her drive away. $300 a day. That was insane. I went back inside and immediately started digging through the massive folder of paperwork from my home purchase. My attorney during the purchase had been Sarah Mitchell, a sharp real estate lawyer who had handled everything smoothly. But she had moved to Denver shortly after closing my deal, so I was on my own now. I spread the documents across my dining room table and started reading. The HOA bylaws were there. Rules about lawn maintenance, noise complaints, parking regulations. I found a section about architectural modifications that required approval for things like fences, additions, and exterior paint colors. But decorations, nothing. I went through every single page twice. There was absolutely nothing about holiday decorations, height restrictions, or reflective materials. I grabbed my phone and called the HOA office. A woman named Deanne answered. "Hi, this is Samuel Kowalski from 428 Willow Drive." Patricia Henderson just came by and cited me for decoration violations. I'm looking at my HOA documents and I can't find anything about decoration policies." "Oh, hold on," Deanne said. "I heard papers rustling. Let me check. Which section did she cite?" "Section 7, subsection C." "More rustling. I'm looking at Section 7. That's about architectural modifications. There's no subsection C in that section." My grip tightened on the phone. "Are you sure?" "Positive. I've been working here for 3 years. We don't have specific decoration policies. We've had some general aesthetic guidelines that the board discusses, but nothing codified in the bylaws." "So Patricia is making this up." Diane's voice dropped to a whisper. "I can't really comment on that, but between you and me, Patricia has been pushing for stricter decoration rules for years. The board keeps voting them down because most homeowners don't want that level of restriction. She might be trying to enforce rules that don't actually exist." "That's fraud," I said. "You'd need to take that up with a lawyer. I'm just the administrative assistant." "But if you want to challenge her citation, you can request a formal hearing with the full board." "How do I do that?" "Submit a written request within 7 days. I'll email you the form." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat there, staring at my innocent front yard through the window. This was ridiculous. I had just gone through a brutal divorce, bought a house to start fresh, and now some power-hungry HOA president was threatening me with made-up rules and massive fines. The anger built slowly, but it built solid. I wasn't going to take this lying down. I spent the rest of Tuesday researching HOA law in Illinois. What I found was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. Homeowners associations had significant power, but they also had strict legal requirements. They could fine homeowners, place liens on properties, and even foreclose in some cases. But they had to follow their own bylaws exactly. If they deviated from their written rules or tried to enforce non-existent policies, they could face serious legal consequences. By Wednesday morning, I had contacted 3 attorneys. The first 2 wanted retainers that would cost more than just paying Patricia's ridiculous fines. The third was Nathan Bradley, a 50-something lawyer with an office in downtown Naperville who specialized in HOA disputes. "Come in Thursday afternoon," he said over the phone. "Bring all your HOA documents and any correspondence with the board. Initial consultation is free. If I take the case, we'll discuss fees, but I work on contingency for some HOA disputes if there's potential for damages." Thursday afternoon, I sat in Nathan's modest office above a coffee shop on Jefferson Avenue. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a no-nonsense attitude that I immediately appreciated. "Tell me everything," he said. I walked him through Patricia's visit, her threats, and my complete inability to find any decoration policy in the HOA documents. I showed him the bylaws, the original purchase documents, everything. Nathan read carefully, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When he finished, he sat back and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a shark that had just spotted lunch. "This is actually more common than you'd think," he said. "HOA board members, especially presidents, sometimes develop what I call petty dictator syndrome. They start believing that their personal preferences are law. Sometimes it's innocent confusion. Sometimes it's deliberate overreach. Which do you think this is?" "Based on what you've told me, I'd lean toward deliberate." She cited a specific section and subsection. "That's not confusion. That's fabrication. She's either referencing a proposed policy that never passed, or she's completely making it up hoping you won't check." "What can I do?" Nathan leaned forward. "First, we request that formal hearing with the full board. We document everything. I'll send a letter to Patricia, and the board stating that you dispute the violations and that you've been unable to locate any decoration policy in the official HOA documents. We'll demand that they provide the specific bylaw you're allegedly violating. What if they make one up? They can't enforce rules retroactively. If a decoration policy doesn't exist now, they can't punish you for violating it. They could pass one for future enforcement, but even that has requirements. They need proper notice to all homeowners, a vote, and amendments to the official bylaws filed with the county. And if they try to fine me anyway, then we sue. HOA disputes in Illinois can result in the association paying attorney fees and damages if they're found to have acted improperly. If Patricia is deliberately enforcing non-existent rules, that's bad faith, possibly fraud. You could recover your legal costs, compensation for harassment, and potentially punitive damages. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. So you'll take my case? Absolutely. I love these cases, honestly. HOAs serve a purpose, but when they go rogue, someone needs to push back. Let's start with the formal request in my letter. We'll see how Patricia responds. My guess is she'll either back down immediately or double down. Either way, we'll be ready. That evening, I received an email from Diane at the HOA office with the hearing request form. I filled it out, stating clearly that I disputed the alleged violations and requested documentation of the specific decoration policy I had supposedly violated. I also requested that Patricia provide photographic evidence of the violations and clarification on how my decorations differed from those of other homeowners in the community. Nathan sent his letter the next day, Friday. It was beautifully professional and absolutely devastating. He laid out the legal requirements for HOA enforcement, noted the absence of any decoration policy in the official documents, and stated that any fines imposed would be challenged in court. He copied the entire HOA board, not just Patricia. The weekend was quiet. I spent Saturday driving around Riverside Meadows, really looking at other houses. What I found was illuminating. My neighbors at 432 Willow Drive had a Santa sleigh display that was easily twice the height of my snowman. The corner house at Oak and Willow had enough lights to be seen from space. 2 streets over, someone had set up an entire nativity scene with full-sized figures. I took photos of everything. If Patricia wanted to enforce decoration standards, she was being wildly selective. Monday morning brought another knock on my door. This time it was a man I recognized from the neighborhood, Tom Chen, who lived 3 houses down. "Hey, Samuel, right?" he said. "I heard about your situation with Patricia. Word travels fast. Diane at the HOA office mentioned it to a few people. Listen, Patricia tried the same thing with me 2 years ago. She claimed my Halloween decorations violated some policy about scary imagery visible from the street. I pushed back, asked to see the actual rule, and she eventually dropped it. But she's done this to at least 4 other homeowners that I know of. Why doesn't anyone stop her?" Tom shrugged. "Most people just comply. It's easier than fighting. Some move out. A few of us have pushed back successfully, but it's exhausting. The HOA board is mostly rubber stamps for whatever Patricia wants. She's been president for 6 years. That seems like a long time. It is. Elections happen annually, but nobody ever runs against her. Most homeowners don't pay attention. They just pay their fees and hope to be left alone." "Maybe that needs to change," I said. Tom grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that. Let me know if you need support. I've got documentation from my situation, and I can connect you with the others Patricia has harassed." That afternoon, I got a call from Nathan. We got a response from the HOA. "Want to hear it, please?" Patricia sent an email, not a formal letter, which is already a procedural mistake. She claims that the decoration policy is part of the living documents maintained by the board, and that homeowners are expected to request current guidelines before making exterior changes. Living documents, a term some HOAs use for policies that can be updated without formal bylaw amendments. But here's the thing, living documents still have to be written down, distributed to homeowners, and available for review. You can't have secret rules. I responded asking for a copy of these guidelines when they were adopted and proof that they were distributed to all homeowners. What do you think she'll do? She's cornered. Either she produces documents that don't exist, admits there are no specific policies, or tries to create something backdated. Any of those options creates legal problems for her. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday evening at 7. It would take place at the community center in Riverside Meadows, a nice facility with a meeting room the HOA board used monthly. I spent the week preparing. Tom Chen introduced me to 3 other homeowners who had been targeted by Patricia. First was Michael Torres, who had been fined for painting his front door navy blue instead of black. Second was Jennifer Walsh, cited for having flower boxes that were non-standard. Third was Robert Kim, who had been threatened with fines for parking his work van in his own driveway. All of them had eventually complied rather than fight, but all of them were angry about it. When I mentioned the hearing, all 4 offered to attend as witnesses. Nathan advised me to keep the hearing simple. State your case clearly. You put up modest decorations. You reviewed your HOA documents and found no decoration policy. You're requesting that the board provide the specific rule you violated. Stay calm, stay factual, don't get emotional. Thursday evening arrived. I dressed in slacks and a button-down shirt, nothing too formal but respectful. Nathan met me at the community center at 6:30. Tom Chen, Michael, Jennifer, and Robert showed up to support me. So did about 15 other neighbors who had heard about the dispute. The meeting room had a long table at the front where the 5 board members sat. Patricia was in the center, looking annoyed at the crowd. To her left were Donald Marsh and Carol Peterson, both retirees in their late 60s. To her right were Kevin Young and Susan Fitzpatrick, younger professionals who seemed uncomfortable with the attention. Patricia called the meeting to order at 7 sharp. We have one item on tonight's agenda. Mr. Kowalski has requested a hearing regarding alleged decoration violations. Mr. Kowalski, you have 15 minutes to present your case. I stood up. Nathan sat beside me but let me speak. Thank you. On Tuesday, December 10th, Patricia Henderson came to my house and claimed that my winter decorations violated Section 7, subsection C of the HOA guidelines. She threatened fines of $300 per day if I didn't remove the decorations within 48 hours. I paused, making eye contact with each board member. Patricia's expression was frozen. I immediately reviewed all of my HOA documents. I could not find Section 7, subsection C. In fact, Section 7 deals with architectural modifications and has no subsections related to decorations. I contacted the HOA office, and Deanne confirmed that there are no codified decoration policies in our bylaws. Patricia started to interrupt, but Nathan stood smoothly. Mr. Kowalski has the floor, Miss Henderson, I continued. I hired an attorney to review the situation. He also found no decoration policies. We requested that the HOA provide documentation of the specific rule I violated. We received an email claiming that decoration standards are part of living documents that homeowners should request. However, I was never informed of any such documents when I purchased my home, and they weren't included in my closing paperwork. I held up a folder. I've also documented that multiple homes in this neighborhood have decorations that exceed mine in size, brightness, and complexity. If decoration standards exist, they're being enforced selectively and inconsistently. I sat down. Patricia's face had gone red. "Are you finished?" she asked coldly. "Yes. First of all, your tone is disrespectful. Second, the board has discretion to enforce community standards even if they're not explicitly written in the bylaws. The general aesthetic clause gives us authority to address any element that negatively impacts property values or community appearance." Nathan stood again. "May I address the board?" Patricia looked like she wanted to refuse, but Carol Peterson nodded. "Please." "I'm Nathan Bradley, representing Mr. Kowalski. I specialize in HOA law. While it's true that boards have some discretion, that discretion must be exercised within the framework of the written bylaws. Illinois HOA law is clear on this point. You cannot enforce rules that don't exist. You cannot selectively enforce standards without written criteria. And you certainly cannot threaten homeowners with fines for violating non-existent policies." He placed a document on the table. "This is a copy of your filed bylaws from the DuPage County Recorder's Office. There is no decoration policy. The aesthetic clause you mentioned, Ms. Henderson, relates to property maintenance like lawn care and exterior repairs. It does not grant unlimited authority to regulate decorations." The room was silent. Kevin Young, one of the younger board members, cleared his throat. "Patricia, do we actually have written decoration guidelines? We've discussed them at board meetings," Patricia said stiffly. "But are they written and adopted?" Kevin pressed. "The board has the authority. That's not what I asked." Susan Fitzpatrick, the other younger board member, spoke up. "I've been on this board for 2 years. We've never voted on decoration policies. You've mentioned wanting them, Patricia, but nothing was ever formalized." Patricia glared at Susan like she'd committed treason. "This board needs to present a unified front. This board needs to follow the law," Nathan said firmly. "If you attempt to fine Mr. Kowalski for violating a non-existent policy, he will sue for harassment, bad faith, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He'll win, and the HOA will pay his attorney fees and damages. Is that really what you want?" Donald Marsh, who hadn't spoken yet, sighed heavily. "Patricia, I think we need to table this. If we don't have written policies, we can't enforce them. That's pretty basic." "I agree," Carol Peterson said. "Mr. Kowalski's decorations are perfectly reasonable. I drive past his house every day. They're tasteful and modest. If we're going to have decoration standards, we need to create them properly, with input from the community, and apply them going forward, not retroactively." Patricia looked around the table. She was losing control. This is a slippery slope. If we allow oversized inflatables and excessive lighting, this neighborhood will look like a carnival. "His snowman is 4 feet tall," Tom Chen called out from the audience. "Mine is 6 feet. Are you going to fine me too? And I have a 12-foot inflatable Santa," someone else added. "Had it up for 3 years. No complaints." Patricia's carefully maintained composure was cracking. "This meeting is getting out of hand. I move that we uphold the violations and impose the fines." "I second that motion," Donald said, but his tone was weary, but only to force a vote. Kevin Young spoke immediately. "I vote no. We're not fining someone for violating a rule that doesn't exist." "I also vote no," Susan said. Carol Peterson shook her head. "No, this isn't right, Patricia." Donald Marsh looked at Patricia apologetically. "I have to vote no. We'd lose the lawsuit." 4-1. Patricia's motion failed. "The violations are dismissed," Kevin Young said formally. "Mr. Kowalski, you're free to maintain your current decorations." The board will consider whether to develop decoration guidelines for future seasons, but any such guidelines will be properly drafted, voted on, and distributed with sufficient notice. Nathan smiled. I felt like I'd won the lottery, but Patricia wasn't done. I want it noted in the minutes that I believe this board is failing in its duty to maintain community standards. Mr. Kowalski has shown flagrant disrespect for this association, and this decision sets a dangerous precedent. Noted, Kevin said dryly. Meeting adjourned. As people filed out, several neighbors came up to shake my hand and thank me. Tom Chen clapped me on the shoulder. That was amazing. Patricia looked like she was going to explode. Nathan was packing his briefcase. Nice work. Clean victory. She can't touch you now. I felt a surge of relief. Thank you. Seriously, I couldn't have done this without you. Send my bill to the HOA, he joked. Then his expression turned serious. Be careful, though. Patricia strikes me as the type who holds grudges. She might try other ways to make your life difficult. Like what? Excessive inspections. Nitpicking other violations. She'll stay within legal bounds probably, but she can still be a pain. Document everything. If she starts harassing you, we can pursue a restraining order or another lawsuit. I nodded, but honestly, I felt good. I'd stood up to a bully and won. How bad could it get? I found out the answer over the next few weeks. 3 days after the hearing, I received a notice that my lawn was in violation of maintenance standards. Apparently, there was a section of grass near my mailbox that exceeded 4 inches in height. The fine would be $50 if not corrected within 72 hours. It was December. In Illinois. My grass was dormant and brown like everyone else's. I measured the supposedly offending patch. It was 3.5 inches. I took photos with a ruler for scale and emailed them to the HOA office with a polite note that the grass was within standards. The following week, I received a notice about my garbage cans being visible from the street. According to a bylaw I actually could find, garbage cans were supposed to be stored out of sight except on collection days. Fair enough. Except the notice claimed I'd left them out on a Wednesday. Garbage collection in Riverside Meadows was on Tuesday mornings. I checked my security camera footage. I had brought the cans in by 8 a.m. Tuesday. I sent the footage to the HOA office. Then came a complaint about my mailbox needing paint. Another about tree branches hanging over the sidewalk. Another about a supposedly loose shutter that I couldn't find because it didn't exist. Every single complaint came from Patricia. Every single one was either fabricated or grossly exaggerated. And every single one landed in front of the HOA board, requiring them to spend time reviewing my documentation proving Patricia was harassing me. After the 4th bogus complaint in 2 weeks, Kevin Young called me. Hey, Samuel, it's Kevin from the board. Listen, I just want to apologize. Patricia is clearly targeting you and it's not okay. Susan and I have talked to the other board members and we're going to address this at the next board meeting. I appreciate that, I said. This is getting ridiculous. I know. Honestly, Patricia has been a problem for a while, but she's always been careful to stay within the rules. This is different. She's abusing her position. We're going to discuss whether to remove her as president. Can you do that? According to our bylaws, yes. The board can vote to remove an officer with a majority vote. Then we'd elect a new president from among the remaining board members. It's never been done before, but there's a first time for everything. The board meeting was scheduled for January 15th. It was a regular monthly meeting, but word got around that Patricia's conduct would be discussed. Nearly 50 homeowners showed up, filling the community center meeting room to capacity. Patricia called the meeting to order, looking suspicious at the crowd. The first items on the agenda were routine financial reports and maintenance updates. Then Kevin Young spoke up. "I'd like to add an item to the agenda. Discussion of board member conduct and potential officer removal." Patricia's expression went icy. "That's not on the published agenda." "I'm aware. I'm adding it now under new business. Do I have a second?" "Second," Susan Fitzpatrick said immediately. "You can't do this," Patricia said. "This is inappropriate, and it's entirely appropriate," Carol Peterson interrupted. "And frankly overdue. Patricia, you've filed 17 complaints against Mr. Kowalski in the past month. We've reviewed all of them. Not a single one was valid. You've wasted board time, harassed a homeowner, and abused your position." "I was enforcing our standards," Patricia snapped. "No," Kevin said firmly. "You were retaliating because he challenged you. That's misconduct. We have documentation of false complaints, including claims that were disproven by photographic and video evidence. You've exposed this association to legal liability." Donald Marsh, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "Patricia, I've known you for years. You've done good work for this community. But this vendetta against Mr. Kowalski has crossed a line. You need to step back." "I will not step back," Patricia said, her voice rising. "This association needs strong leadership. If I'm removed, you'll all see what happens when standards aren't maintained. Property values will drop. The neighborhood will deteriorate. Or," Tom Chen called from the audience, "we'll have a normal HOA that maintains common areas and handles actual problems instead of inventing fake ones." Several people applauded. Patricia looked around wildly, like she couldn't believe her authority was being questioned. "I move that Patricia Henderson be removed as president of this HOA board, effective immediately," Kevin said. "She may remain as a board member, but she will no longer hold an officer position." "Second," Susan said. "This is a coup," Patricia said. "You're all going to regret this." "All in favor?" Kevin asked. "Aye," said Kevin, Susan, Carol, and Donald in unison. "Opposed?" "Opposed," Patricia said, her voice shaking with anger. "Motion carries 4-1. Patricia, you're no longer president. I move that Carol Peterson be elected as president pro tem until the next regular election." The vote was unanimous, including a reluctant abstention from Patricia, who seemed too shocked to speak. Carol took the center seat. "Thank you. First order of business. I want to formally apologize to Samuel Kowalski on behalf of this board for the harassment he's endured. Second, I'm directing that all complaints filed by Patricia against Mr. Kowalski in the past month be expunged from his record. Third, we're going to establish a clear complaint review process to prevent this kind of abuse in the future." The meeting continued, but Patricia sat in rigid silence. When it adjourned, she stood abruptly and walked out without speaking to anyone. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, I came home from work to find my mailbox destroyed. Someone had taken a baseball bat or something similar to it. The post was snapped, the box crushed, and mail scattered across my lawn. I called the police. A Naperville officer came out, took a report, and asked if I had security camera footage. I did. My doorbell camera didn't cover the mailbox directly, but it had caught a white Lexus SUV driving slowly past my house at 2:30 in the morning. The license plate was partially visible. "That's Patricia Henderson's car," I told the officer. "She lives in this neighborhood." The officer took notes. "I'll follow up with her. Mailbox destruction is vandalism. Federal property is involved since it's a mailbox, so that could escalate charges if we find evidence." "She's been harassing me for weeks." I explained the entire HOA situation. The officer nodded. "Sounds like a pattern. Let me investigate. Keep your camera footage safe." 3 days later, the officer called me. "Mr. Kowalski, I spoke with Miss Henderson. She denied being near your property that night. However, I also canvassed your neighbors. Two of them have security cameras that caught the same vehicle. One has a clear shot of the license plate. It's definitely her car. We're moving forward with charges. Patricia Henderson was charged with criminal damage to property and mailbox vandalism. Because it involved a mailbox, federal charges were possible, but the prosecutor opted for state charges since the damage was relatively minor. Still, it was a misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail and a $2,000 fine. Nathan advised me to file a civil suit as well. You've got her dead to rights. Vandalism, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The HOA might have liability too for failing to rein her in earlier. I hesitated on that. The board had ultimately done the right thing. Let's just focus on Patricia. The civil suit asked for damages to cover my mailbox repair, my attorney fees, and compensation for the harassment. We also requested a restraining order. Patricia hired her own attorney, a woman named Constance Reed who had a reputation as a bulldog, but there wasn't much she could do. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage from multiple sources, documented false complaints, witness testimony from other harassed homeowners. In March, Patricia pleaded guilty to the criminal charges in exchange for a sentence of 6 months probation, community service, and restitution for my mailbox. She was also ordered to stay at least 100 yards away from my property. The civil case settled in April. Patricia's homeowner's insurance covered most of it. I received $12,000 in total, enough to cover all my attorney fees and then some. More importantly, the settlement included language stating that Patricia acknowledged her conduct was inappropriate and agreed to resign from the HOA board immediately. Tom Chen ran for the vacant board position and won easily. The HOA drafted proper decoration guidelines with input from the community. They were reasonable and flexible, nothing like Patricia's phantom rules. The board also implemented reforms to prevent future abuse, including a requirement that all complaints be reviewed by at least 2 board members before being sent to homeowners. As for Patricia, I saw her occasionally around the neighborhood. She never made eye contact. Rumor had it that her husband was embarrassed by the whole situation and they were considering moving. I didn't take pleasure in that. I hadn't wanted to destroy anyone's life. I had just wanted to put up a snowman in peace. By the time summer rolled around, things in Riverside Meadows felt different, friendlier, less tense. People actually talked to each other instead of worrying about whether their grass was a 1/4 inch too long. I planted flowers in my front bed without worrying about whether they were approved colors. I set up a small fountain near my porch. I even painted my front door a nice blue-gray that I'd been eyeing since I moved in. No complaints, no threats, no Patricia. In July, the neighborhood had a block party. It was the first one in years, organized by the new board. Tom Chen grilled burgers. Kids ran through sprinklers. Adults drank beer and actually enjoyed living in an HOA neighborhood. Kevin Young found me near the dessert table. "You know, you kind of saved this place." "I just didn't want to take down my snowman," I said. "Yeah, but you stood up. Most people don't. They either comply or move away. You pushed back and it exposed a lot of problems we'd been ignoring. Patricia wasn't the whole problem. The system that let her do what she did was the problem. We fixed that. Well, we're fixing it. How's the board doing?" "Good. Carol is a much better president. She actually listens to people." We passed a new rule that board members can't file complaints unless they're seconded by another board member. Prevents personal vendettas. We're also rotating who reviews complaints each month. Sounds healthy. It is. And honestly, applications for board positions are up. People want to be involved now because they trust that it won't be a dictatorship. We might actually have contested elections next year. Democracy in an HOA. Who knew? I laughed. Miracles happen. In August, I ran into Deanne from the HOA office at the grocery store. She smiled when she saw me. "Mr. Kowalski, how are you?" "Good, and please call me Samuel." "Samuel, I just wanted to say thank you. Working for Patricia was miserable. She'd yell at me if I didn't send out her complaint letters fast enough. She'd demand I alter records. It was awful. Carol is wonderful to work for. I actually enjoy my job now. I'm glad. And between you and me, I heard Patricia and her husband listed their house. They are moving to Arizona." I felt a mix of emotions at that. Relief, mostly. A little bit of guilt, but also satisfaction that standing up had actually meant something. September brought fall colors and the start of school. I'd been dating someone I met through a friend, Rachel Daniels, a teacher at the local high school. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly drama-free after my divorce and the HOA nightmare. "So you're the guy who fought the evil HOA president," she said when we first met. "Guilty. That's hot. I like a man who stands up to bullies." We took things slow, but by October she was spending most weekends at my place. She loved the neighborhood, especially now that it had calmed down. When Halloween came around, I went all out with decorations. A graveyard scene with fog machines, spider webs, the works. I waited nervously for any complaints, but none came. Instead, we had over 100 trick-or-treaters, and several parents told me they appreciated the effort. As winter approached again, I started thinking about decorations. This time, I had actual guidelines to follow. They were simple. No decorations taller than 10 feet, no lights that blinked faster than 3 times per second to avoid epilepsy triggers, and everything had to be secured properly to prevent damage and wind. I could live with that. I put up my decorations the day after Thanksgiving. The same icicle lights, the same snowman, the same wreath. But this time I added a few things. More lights. Another inflatable, a penguin that Rachel picked out. A small nativity scene in my side yard. Nobody complained. People walked by and waved. One neighbor asked where I got my penguin because she wanted to order one. Christmas morning, Rachel and I drank coffee on my couch, watching the sun come up. Her teenage daughter Emma was with her dad this year, so it was just us. Quiet. Peaceful. "This is nice," she said, her head on my shoulder. "Yeah, it is. Hard to believe this time last year you were in the middle of HOA warfare. Don't remind me, you should be proud. You changed this whole community." "I just wanted to keep my snowman," she laughed. "Sure, just the snowman. Not about standing up for what's right or fighting petty tyranny." Well, maybe a little bit of that. On New Year's Eve, the neighborhood had another party. Nearly everyone showed up. Tom Chen made a toast at midnight. To Riverside Meadows. "May our lawns be green, our fees be reasonable, and our HOA board be sane." And to Samuel, for reminding us that rules should serve people, not the other way around. Everyone cheered. I felt embarrassed and proud at the same time. The year turned to the next one, and life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I got promoted at work, a nice bump in salary that made the HOA fees feel even less significant. Rachel moved in with me in March after we'd been dating for 6 months. Emma, her daughter, was skeptical at first but warmed up when she realized I wasn't trying to replace her dad and that I made pretty good pancakes. In April, the HOA held elections. Carol ran for president again and won. Tom Chen was re-elected. Kevin and Susan kept their seats. The 5th position went to a new resident, a lawyer named Frank Morrison who had reviewed the reformed bylaws and wanted to help maintain them. Patricia's house sold in May. A young couple with twins moved in. They were friendly and normal. They put up a swing set in the backyard and didn't ask permission from anyone because swing sets weren't restricted. I never saw Patricia again. I heard through the neighborhood gossip chain that she had joined the HOA board in her new Arizona community. I felt bad for her new neighbors but figured that wasn't my problem anymore. In June, I got a letter from Nathan Bradley. It was handwritten, which seemed unusual. Samuel, just wanted to check in. I heard Patricia moved away. Hope everything is going well. Your case was one of the most satisfying of my career. Not because of the money or the drama, but because it actually fixed something broken. Most of my HOA cases end with people getting compensation but nothing really changing. Yours changed an entire community's culture. That's rare and special. Best wishes, Nathan. I showed the letter to Rachel. That's sweet, she said. You should frame it. That seems excessive. Frame it, she insisted. When we have a bad day, we can look at it and remember that sometimes standing up actually works, so I framed it. It hangs in my home office next to my diplomas and family photos. By the time winter rolled around again, 2 full years after Patricia's initial visit, I'd almost forgotten the whole drama. Almost. But when I pulled out my decoration boxes from the garage, I felt a little surge of satisfaction. This time I added even more. A second snowman. Candy cane path lights. A wreath for every window. Not because I was making a statement, but because I wanted to. Because I could. Because no one was going to threaten me with fake rules and ridiculous fines. Rachel helped me hang lights while Emma complained about the cold but ultimately held the ladder. When we finished, we stood on the sidewalk to admire our work. It's perfect, Rachel said. Not too much, I asked. It's exactly right. A car slowed as it passed. My neighbor, Jennifer Walsh, rolled down her window. Looks great, Samuel. We're doing a judging contest this year for best decorations. You'll definitely win. There's a contest. New tradition. Carol's idea. First prize is a gift certificate to that Italian place downtown. I love that place, Rachel said, so we entered. I didn't win. That honor went to the family 3 streets over who had built a full-scale ice castle in their front yard with theatrical lighting. But we got honorable mention, which came with a ribbon that Emma insisted we display on the front door. On Christmas Eve, we hosted dinner. Rachel's parents came. Emma invited a friend. Tom Chen and his wife stopped by for drinks. It was loud and chaotic and wonderful. Late that night, after everyone had left and Emma was asleep in her room, Rachel and I sat on the couch with the lights low and the tree twinkling. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How different things are from 2 years ago. Better. So much better." Last Christmas I was alone, newly divorced, dealing with Patricia. Now I have you, Emma, actual friends in the neighborhood. It's like a different life. You built that, by standing up, by not backing down. I had help. Sure, but you started it. I kissed her. Best decision I ever made. Not taking down that snowman, she laughed. Very romantic. You fought for a snowman. A 4-foot inflatable snowman with a slightly crooked hat. The hero we needed. I kept that snowman for years. It eventually developed a leak and wouldn't inflate properly anymore. I should have thrown it away, but I couldn't. It sits in my garage now, deflated and patched with duct tape, a monument to the principle that sometimes you have to stand up, even over something small, because it's never really about the thing itself. It's about whether you'll let bullies push you around, whether you'll accept lies as truth because it's easier than fighting, whether you'll stand up not just for yourself, but for everyone else who's too tired or scared to do it. Patricia taught me that, ironically. Her petty tyranny, her made-up rules, her vindictive harassment. She pushed so hard that I had to push back, and when I did, I found out I wasn't alone. That's the thing about bullies. They count on isolation, on people being too embarrassed or exhausted to fight. But once one person stands up, others join in. The illusion of power breaks. Years later, I still live in Riverside Meadows. The HOA functions well under Carol and a rotating cast of reasonable board members. We maintain standards without being tyrants. We enforce actual rules, not imaginary ones. People generally like living here. I served on the board myself for a term, helping to update the bylaws to make them clearer and more homeowner-friendly. It wasn't exciting work, but it mattered. Rachel and I got married in a small ceremony at the community center, the same place where Patricia was removed as president. Some people thought that was weird, but I liked the symmetry. A place where I'd stood up for myself became a place where I committed to building something positive. The neighborhood turned out for the wedding. Tom Chen was a groomsman. Emma was a bridesmaid, having fully accepted me into her life. Carol gave a reading. Even Nathan Bradley came, joking that it was the first time an HOA meeting room had been used for something entirely happy. My brother gave a speech at the reception. I remember when Sam moved here. He'd just gone through hell with his divorce. He was starting over, trying to find his footing. Then this HOA thing happened, and honestly, I thought it would break him. Just one more thing on top of everything else. But it didn't. He fought back. He won. And somehow, in fighting for a stupid snowman, he found himself again. He found this community. He found Rachel. So here's to snowmen, terrible HOA presidents, and my brother, who's too stubborn to know when to quit. Everyone laughed and applauded. Rachel squeezed my hand. That night, lying in bed in our hotel, exhausted and happy, she asked me if I ever regretted the whole mess with Patricia. Not even a little bit, I said. Even though it was stressful and expensive and took months, because it led here. If I'd just taken down those decorations, I'd have signaled that I could be pushed around. Patricia would have kept coming after me for other things. I'd have been miserable. Maybe I would have moved. We never would have met. So it was fate. The universe sent you a crazy HOA president so you'd fight back and eventually meet me. Sounds silly when you say it like that. No, she said thoughtfully. It sounds right. We become ourselves in how we respond to challenges. You could have been bitter, defeated. You chose to fight. That's who you are. That's why I love you. I kissed her. I love you too. In the morning, we flew to Costa Rica for our honeymoon. 2 weeks of beaches and rainforests and absolutely no HOA drama. When we got back, there was mail waiting. Among the bills and advertisements was a letter from Patricia. My stomach dropped when I saw the return address from Scottsdale, Arizona. Rachel noticed my expression. What is it? Letter from Patricia. What? Why? I opened it carefully, half expecting threats or more harassment. But it wasn't. Dear Mr. Kowalski, it began. You don't know me, but I'm writing on behalf of my wife, Patricia Henderson. She asked me to send this letter because she's not good at apologies and probably never will be, but she wanted you to know that what happened in Illinois was wrong. She was wrong. The stress of being HOA president, combined with some personal issues we were dealing with, made her into someone she shouldn't have been. The counseling she's been required to attend as part of her probation has helped her see that. She won't contact you directly, per the restraining order, but she wanted you to know she's sorry. She hopes you're doing well. She's stepped back from HOA involvement entirely and is working on being less controlling in general. Thank you for your patience with this letter. Sincerely, Richard Henderson. I read it twice. Rachel read over my shoulder. Wow, she said. Do you believe it? I don't know, maybe. People can change. Are you going to respond? No, I think the best thing is to just let it be. She apologized, or her husband did on her behalf. That's enough. I don't need to reopen communication. Rachel nodded. Probably wise. I filed the letter away. I didn't need it, but I kept it anyway. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that everyone is fighting battles we don't see. Patricia's behavior was wrong, inexcusable even, but she was still a person. A flawed person dealing with her own stress and problems in destructive ways. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it makes it human. The years rolled on. Emma graduated high school and went to college. Rachel and I talked about kids of our own, but decided we were happy as we were. We traveled. We worked. We lived. The neighborhood evolved. Some families moved out. New ones moved in. The HOA maintained stability. Carol eventually stepped down as president and Tom took over. He did a great job, focusing on improving common areas and organizing community events rather than policing people's decorations. Every winter, I put up decorations. They became a neighborhood tradition. Not the biggest or brightest, but consistent and welcoming. People knew that when my lights went up, the season had officially started. One December evening, about 5 years after the whole mess began, a new neighbor knocked on my door. He just moved in 2 houses down. "Hey, I'm Marcus. Just wanted to introduce myself." "Samuel." "Welcome to the neighborhood." "Thanks. Hey, I heard you had some trouble with the HOA a few years back, over decorations." My heart sank. "Yeah, but that was a long time ago. The board is completely different now. They're reasonable." "Oh, I know. That's actually why I moved here." I was in an HOA in Aurora that was a nightmare. I researched before buying this time, found articles online about what happened here and how the community reformed. This place is held up as an example of how HOAs should function. So, thank you. You made it possible for people like me to live in a well-maintained neighborhood without being harassed. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd never thought of my fight with Patricia as something with broader impact beyond Riverside Meadows. "I just didn't want to take down my snowman," I said lamely. Marcus laughed. "Well, your snowman changed things. Seriously. My old HOA, the president, was just like this Patricia person. Reading about how your community handled it, how you got a lawyer and pushed back, it gave me hope that HOAs don't have to be dictatorships. So yeah, thank you." After he left, I told Rachel about the conversation. "You're famous," she teased. "I'm not famous." HOA reform champion Samuel Kowalski. Please don't. But she was right in a way. My little battle had rippled outward. Other people had read about it, seen that pushing back was possible. Maybe some of them stood up to their own bullies. Maybe some HOAs reformed before things got bad because they didn't want to end up like Riverside Meadows under Patricia. That felt good. Not ego good, but meaningful good. Like I'd contributed something positive to the world, even accidentally. This past winter, I put up decorations with the same care I always do. Lights, wreaths, the new inflatable snowman that replaced my original. Rachel helped, Emma visited from college to help, and even Tom came over to offer opinions on light placement. Standing in my yard, looking at my house glowing with warm light, I felt profound gratitude, not for the fight or the drama or the vindication, but for what came after. The community, the friendships, the life I'd built. Patricia tried to make me take down decorations because she thought rules mattered more than people. She was wrong. Rules serve people. Communities exist for people. The moment you flip that, making people serve arbitrary rules and HOA power, everything breaks down. I learned that standing up matters. That having principles isn't about being stubborn or difficult. It's about knowing what's right and not backing down even when it's hard. I also learned that you're rarely alone. When I pushed back against Patricia, Tom, Michael, Jennifer, and Robert all stood with me. When Patricia was removed, the whole neighborhood came together. People want fairness. They want reason. They'll support you if you're fighting for something genuine. Most importantly, I learned that small stands matter. I could have moved, could have taken down the decorations, could have paid the fake fines, but I didn't. And because I didn't, things changed. Not just for me, but for everyone. So every winter when I hang my lights and set up my snowman, I remember, not the anger or the stress, but the moment I decided I wasn't going to be pushed around, the moment I called a lawyer and said, "This isn't right." That moment changed everything. It brought me here to this life with these people, in this community that works because someone stood up when standing up mattered. And honestly, I'd go through it all again. Every complaint, every hearing, every stressful moment. Because the other side of that fight is worth everything. The other side is home.